Good afternoon. Welcome to Radio Row, live at Super Bowl 58 from the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. My name is Roy Kessel with Sports Philanthropy Network, and we're very excited to have with us special guests this afternoon, Nancy Brown from the American Heart Association and Jeff Miller from the NFL. We're going to talk about some of the new initiatives and partnerships between the two organizations. Obviously, heart health being crucial to what's going on. You know, we've seen a lot of things happen on the field. So Nancy, why don't you lead it off and tell us a little bit about how this partnership came together?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you for having us here today. You know, the American Heart Association and the NFL have worked together for almost 18 years to help young kids understand the importance of physical activity in their daily life. We have a program that has been highly successful for 18 years called Play 60. And it was an obvious platform for us to expand after last year's incident with Damar Hamlin to include CPR. And so our relationship has expanded to also include CPR in high schools and high school athletes.
And Jeff, we know obviously there's been some high profile incidents in the NFL and some of the things that happened, Damar Hamlin being one of the big things. We talked about that yesterday. The fact that if that occurred almost anywhere else in the world, he would not have survived, right? We look around Radio Row here and you think of that occurring for anybody in this space,
Sure.
how difficult it would be to get some treatment and paramedics or anybody there. Talk a little bit about how the NFL has really ramped that up and how the NFL is supporting this new initiative.
Thank you for having me, Roy. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think the work with the American Heart Association took on another level of importance following Damar last January 2nd. People saw for the first time a lot of the medical infrastructure, a lot of the outcome of what is practiced all the time by our doctors and trainers, independent experts, emergency response teams, to be able to ensure that the best possible outcome would in fact happen when something happened on field. And we have 30 medical providers at every NFL game. That's true whether we're talking about the Super Bowl or a preseason game or a game that we play in England or Germany. And we practice these things. These emergency plans are practiced, and those experts are out there when nobody's watching, doing what they do. The only difference for them was it happened in real time in this case. And so the question for us and for the American Heart Association, because we went to our good friends and said, what can we take from this now that people are paying attention? And they were. And so emergency action planning, CPR education, the availability of AEDs, coaches in high schools trained so that they know how to react in those circumstances became a really paramount concern to us, especially when we learned that a lot of states and a lot of schools just aren't ready for what could be a sudden cardiac arrest for high school kids or for passerbys who happen to be at the high school, parents like me or other adults. And so it's an opportunity for us to use our platform to share our learnings and using our great partners at AHA to make at least high school sports and beyond that much safer.
Well, and you talk about high school sports, right? And you back it all the way up. Youth sports, high school sports, college sports, the training that the NFL has to get to somebody with 30 people on the field and right there, right? That's something that's hard to duplicate at other levels based on cost and availability. How can we, Nancy, when we look around, how can we make that environment safer for our youth and high school athletes?
Well, thank you for that question. Our goal alongside the NFL is to create a nation of lifesavers. As you said a moment ago, if something happened, here in Sports Row, I would hope that a lot of people here would know how to do CPR and would know how to activate an emergency response system. We're very focused with the sports leagues in particular in making sure that emergency response plans in schools are created, that people are trained in CPR, and that there is availability of an appropriate number of AEDs that are visibly placed. Now, let me just back that up to society as a whole and say that in this country, this year, 350,000 people will suffer a cardiac arrest, and fewer than 10% of them will survive. So only 1 in 10 people who have a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital will survive. And that is why we are dedicated to create creating a nation of lifesavers to making sure that people know how to do hands-only CPR. We're doing hands-only CPR training here at the NFL Experience for all of the fans. And our booth last year, at least, and at other NFL events, has been swarmed with people who want to learn how to do hands-only CPR, which is as easy as pressing hard and fast in the center of the chest to the tune Staying Alive. And you will help recirculate blood in someone while we wait for the EMS system to arrive.
And Roy, let me answer your question, because it was a really good point that you made when you were asking Nancy that question around 30 medical professionals at we're blessed to be having the best people in the community at the game to take care of our players. But here's what you need. You need a plan, so you're ready to go when something happens. You need an AED within a 1 to 3 minute radius of where you are, and you need somebody who knows how to use it or to knows how to use CPR. That's it. You don't need 30 medical professionals. You need those 3 basic elements, which is why we're advocating for those in every high school in America.
Yeah.
And it's important, right? You talk about not needing that extent of coverage, right? But the challenge is, how do we make sure everybody goes through that training, right? We think it should be something that is just synonymous with being part of life, right? Of every student in the high school should be able to do this, right? Every student in college should be able to do this. Every business, office building, these things should be readily available for anybody.
They absolutely should. And, over the years, the American Heart Association, through our advocacy work, has been very focused on mandatory CPR training as a high school graduation requirement. Sadly, many of our states are not providing the funding for that to actually happen. There's a renewed interest in that. Through the partnership of the AHA and the NFL, we are in schools right now teaching middle and high school kids how to do CPR. We are, as I said, creating a nation of lifesavers where CPR training is being extended in companies, and in community centers and locations, because you're right. Everyone can't have 30 medical professionals within 2 to 3 minutes of them, but we all can be a lifesaver. Doing CPR is an important life skill, and it's not that difficult to learn how to do it. And that is our goal, to make sure that we expose people how to do CPR.
Well, maybe we'll have to have the NFL put that as a requirement for accreditation to get media passes.
Now, there's an idea.
There's an idea I hadn't thought of. But what we are doing with the AHA, a number of the other professional sports leagues, a number of medical associations, and most importantly, Damar Hamlin's 50 states that mandate that schools have AEDs, that coaches are trained in CPR and the use of an AED.
So, as we look at this, you talked about some of the states are not willing to make that a requirement, right, to graduate from high school. What's the objection and the obstacle? You're talking about cost, but
it's funding. Yeah, the states will pass we're going back 10, 15 years. This is, long before Damar Hamlin's incident, this has been a public policy priority of the AHA, and it's funding, to make sure the schools have the resources. And now, together with the NFL and the Chasing M's Foundation and all of the other sports leagues, as Jeff just mentioned, we're really focused now on making sure that the schools have an emergency response plan, as Jeff has noted, that everyone in that school knows it, it's rehearsed, they understand that people know CPR and that there are AEDs.
So when we talk about the cost, give us a sense of scale, because I think oftentimes people don't understand why this doesn't happen. What does it cost to put people through CPR training? What does it cost to get another AED in a venue and have the proper training for that?
Well, the cost of CPR training can be as low as pressing your computer and watching a 3-minute hands-only CPR video and learning how to do hands-only CPR on an inflatable dummy in a $40 kit that is provided to schools. That is how low cost learning CPR can be. The cost of AEDs, it varies, based upon the manufacturer, and I certainly don't have their exact pricing here. But let me ask ask you the question this way: how much is a life worth? And, there are so many incidents of cardiac arrest. As I've said, 350,000 out of hospital cardiac arrests. The cost of a defibrillator, several hundred to a few $1,000s, is well worth it to make sure a school, a company, a community center is equipped to save a life.
Well, I know you two have a crazy hectic schedule. I want to thank Nancy, Jeff, both of you
Our
for
pleasure
being
to be here.
Thank
Thanks
you
for having
so
us.
talking
much.
about this important issue. I think it's something we would love to see how we can partner Sports Philanthropy
Wonderful.
Network with you around the country. We have chapters now in 22 markets and growing. I think it's something that's very important that we would like to add on for all of our chapters to be resource partners in those
Thank you.
communities because, as you said, 350,000 lives a year. You know, we're not going to be able to save all of them, but as you said, if we can save one in each market, 2, 10, it adds up in a hurry. So thank you both for your encouragement and support for all of our viewers and listeners. We appreciate you joining Sports Philanthropy Network here live from Radio Row. I'm Roy Kessel signing off, reminding everybody to live generously. Thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
Thank you.